This is the story of a boy who was very sensitive to lights and sounds. So he built secret hiding places where nothing could get in. The boy didn't like looking people in the eye. It made him feel uncomfortable. One day, he found out he had something called autism. His family got him help, and slowly, he learned how to live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
Your son wants to get a cat, but you're allergic. Do you A, prepare yourself, B, make the best of it,
C squared equals
25.
Good job.
or C, find a loophole? When it comes to parenting, there are no perfect answers, but that's okay, because you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Teens in foster care will love you just the same.
The following program was provided by an independent producer, solely responsible for its content. The views, information, or opinions expressed during this program series are solely those of the host and guests appearing on the program and do not necessarily represent those of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Brainstorm, bringing great minds and ideas together, exploring a wide variety of opportunities, achieving academic excellence, using the latest technology, government's impact, preparing for 21st century careers, parenting and health issues, topics shaping tomorrow. Brainstorm with Lisa Willever, bringing great minds and ideas together.
Welcome to Brainstorm. I'm Lisa Willever, and today we are talking about the college admission process. Before we begin, let's learn a little bit more about our topic. SAT, GPA, and class rank are just a few of the things on the minds of many high school students. But what is it that colleges really look for? For many parents and high school graduates, the college admission process can feel overwhelming and mysterious. But if you do your homework and work with a guidance counselor, navigating the process can be much less stressful. So joining me today, we are very fortunate. We have Gracia Montero. You are the Director of Admissions at the College of New Jersey. And I want to thank you. I know it's a very busy time for you to be out and about, so thank you for joining me today.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Would you tell our viewers a little bit about your background before we begin?
Sure. Well, I am originally from New York, and I started in college as, I actually majored in speech pathology and audiology, believe it or not.
Which is the direct route to
college,
Director of Admissions.
Sure, exactly. But I have been, I was in New York for many years as the Assistant Director for Admissions at the SUNY New Paltz location. And then I came to TCNJ about 17 years ago, and I became the Director of Admissions about 10 years ago.
Well, that's wonderful. So I would imagine at picnics and barbecues, you must be a very popular lady when there are people who have high school age children, and they probably want to pick your brain and find out. So
and at the supermarket.
At the supermarket, yeah, probably everywhere. You know, I'll take $10 of unleaded.
That's right.
By the way.
That's right.
So I guess what I did to prepare, I figured I would ask a lot of high school students and their parents what their questions were. Sure. I have a daughter in college. I have a son who's currently applying to colleges, so I'm very familiar, but I wanted to know what other people's questions, what their concerns were, and also some of the myths that people believe to be true that may not be true. So you're gonna help us crack that code. So I guess the first thing, before we talk about the SAT, because you know that's one of their top questions, sure. What is the difference between SAT and the ACT? Is there a huge difference? Is it just basically the same?
Well, the first thing I would say, standardized tests is something that all colleges at this moment are looking at. There are certain schools that have chosen to be SAT optional, but the SAT or ACT really doesn't matter which one. ACT used to be very popular on the mid-coast and the west coast, and SATs used to be more popular here on the east coast. But recently, they have been both used in the admissions process. what we find is that, students, it's about preference.
Okay.
The SATs allows a student really to look into specific subjects, but in reference to the admissions process, either one should work.
Okay, so the first big question we had is how important is the SAT? If I don't do well, is this a deal breaker? So
The answer is definitely it's not a deal breaker.
okay, I'm sure there are a lot of people collectively sighing relief right now.
The most important piece, in competitive admissions, similar to what you will find in applying to TCNJ, that is an element, that is a factor that we are going to be using to select our applicant pool. And that's more because it is a competitive process. So it's important that students go into taking these standardized tests very seriously. Okay. We encourage students to start by maybe looking at taking the SATs or ACTs as early as their sophomore, junior year for practice, you know, and as they get more into their senior year, taking it towards how they're going to be presenting themselves to colleges. But the reality is that colleges are taking a holistic approach in admissions. They're looking at students not just based on one item. They're looking at many different factors.
Oh, well, that's good
SATs
news.
is just one of those factors.
Very good. So how about grades? Another question was, how important are grades? What if you have really good grades and then you have a C? So does that one C really impact them, or?
I would love to be able to share more with regards to how a student is tackling their high school career.
Okay, so again, more holistically.
Yeah, more holistically. When a student goes into high school, they're given a couple of classes and they're able to select from one year to the next how they want their trajectory. And the reality is that students should be looking, if they're really seriously thinking about college, they should be looking at taking the most competitive program that their high school offers that is appropriate for them individually. I'm not saying that they should be taking all AP classes or all honors courses, but definitely the most competitive, because it's not just about getting into college. It's about performing well when they are in college. So if you take that approach, it's taking the strongest curriculum possible they can handle, right? And hopefully there's a progression, there's an increase, there's an improvement, but also doing well within that. Right, progression.
Okay, so now that's very interesting. If a student, now some students are always torn, especially senior year. You know, senioritis kicks in, and I know a lot of times their parents, counselors may encourage them to take an AP class, and they may want to, not go to that level of challenge. Is it better if they had a B in an AP class as opposed to all A's? I mean, I know they're weighted, so is it still to their advantage to challenge themselves? Does that show a college that they're challenging themselves?
It's better to have an A in an AP class.
A in an AP, yes. Okay, we're writing that down. A in an AP class.
I strongly believe that a student who is ready for the next step, it's better to take the rigor, that they are challenging themselves, that they're not just staying complacent and just flying by.
Yeah.
I think it's very critical, realizing that college will be a challenging experience.
Absolutely.
Right? So I prefer students seeing calculus, right, in high school for the first time versus calculus in college for the first time.
That's a great point.
To me, it's about that progression. The same thing goes, let's say, for a foreign language.
Okay.
A student will have, especially because they're fulfilling liberal arts curriculum, and which will have typically a foreign language. Not having a language in high school can affect that, right?
Okay.
How they perform at the college. So I always encourage them, if they have an opportunity to do that, to continue to challenge themselves daily in the classroom, from year to year, and actually increase their rigor, the better prepared they are to perform in college. Again, it's not just about gaining admissions to college. It's about really doing well there.
So now, how about, they always tell kids they should be well-rounded, they should be in a lot of activities. Now, I don't want to date myself, but if you recall a Brady Bunch episode where Marcia signed up for every club possible. Marcia. So I know sometimes kids feel that they don't have enough on their application, they need more, and they really overload themselves with activities. So I guess, is there like a fine balance? You want to see that they are well-rounded? Do the activities show you that?
Again, going back to what's the most critical piece, I find that it's about their curriculum, their performance within that curriculum. And then I find that the activities is like more like icing on the cake, right? It's those sprinkles of interest, being able to share passion. So my preference has always been not having a huge list of 20 activities with no solid commitment. I prefer seeing 3, 4, 5 activities where a student has been able to say, I am a member, and now I am progressing to becoming a secretary, the VP, the editor.
So not just a name
so
only.
It's not just about name only. It's about commitment too, right? It's showing passion. It's showing true interest. And, you know, and it's really creating that level of responsibility that I think it shows maturity.
Okay. So now, when I applied to college, it was on paper. you tore the application out of the brochure and mailed it with a stamp, and it's evolved. So now we have the Common App.
That's right.
So I think sometimes, in some regards, it makes it easier for kids to want to just keep checking more and more colleges. What are your thoughts on, one of the questions we had was, should I apply to as many colleges as possible? And I know, you know, the theory behind that is the better chance I have of getting into college if I apply to, you know, every college I can find. But there's got to be drawbacks to that. What is your thought on how many they should be applying to?
The Common Application was really created to allow a student to apply with one application to multiple schools. And there are over 700, 750 plus colleges on one application. Should they apply to all of them? Absolutely not.
No. Okay.
The thought, it's about, again, starting with research. When you start looking at what's important, what kind of experiences do I want in a college? I always say anywhere from 7 to 10 colleges. Anything over that might be an overload.
And they have to pay for them. They may not realize
that's
you have
right.
to pay for each application.
There's an expectation, and even 7, some people might disagree with me, even 7 might be on the high end.
Okay.
But I believe that if you have done true research, colleges that you could gain admissions to, colleges that might be reach schools, colleges that, kind of a flavoring, right?
Yes.
The 7 schools will allow you, I think, a really nice mix. And again, doing research ahead of time.
I love that you're saying research, because sometimes I feel like when you talk to kids, they're either picking a college because that's their favorite football team or that's where their grandfather went. And they may not be paying particular attention to the programming. You know, the whole reason you're there is to have a major in that college. So you need to make sure that it fits, and also things like the size of the school. You know, you have some universities that are in a city and they're huge and they have transportation, and then you have other that are self-contained. So, you know, would you recommend that students really research all aspects of it?
There are some obvious things that a student should be looking at. Comfort, size, location, how long will it take, right? Transportation. I mean, do they want to be in an urban setting, in a suburban area, in a rural area? Do they offer their major? All those components to me tend to be very obvious things to consider. But I will always stretch it a little bit more. I do believe that students should also start looking, and parents too, about outcomes within colleges. Some things that might not necessarily be as obvious. When visiting, you know, how does the campus look? What is the commitment by the school, you know, to maintain the best facilities possible? Those are also elements, you know, into kind of the experience you want. What kind of organizations? What about the student affairs division? What is that structure? How are the students being retained? What is the retention rate? What is their graduation rate? To me, those are true elements of a solid research.
I hope people are writing all this down, because that really makes so much sense. I mean, that graduation rate, retention rate, those are huge. It lets you know how students are flourishing there and if they are happy there. And also, I mean, even technology, right? To see schools that are emphasizing new trends in technology and investing in...
And how do you get to that? I believe that, you know, as students research and put elements, I will probably say students need to put themselves first, right? what makes sense for me, what kind of experience do I want, putting that on paper.
Okay.
Then from there, translating it, before starting a list of colleges, understanding who they are as an individual, as a student at that moment, then transferring that to the research, then transferring that to a list of colleges.
That's
which
valuable.
that list could be as long as you want it, right? Because you could do so much research online, going to the websites, seeing, navigating that process even before you begin that common application, where if you have done solid research, you should be able to get to the 10 to 7 schools, right?
I love that. I
And
love
be
it.
able to
We're going
apply.
to take a break. We'll be
Sure.
back in a moment with some more. I have Gracia Montero here, and we're talking about college admissions, so we'll be back in a moment.
Your son wants to get a cat,
I'll really take care of it.
but you're allergic. Do you A, prepare yourself, B, make the best of it,
C squared equals...
25.
Good job.
or C, find a loophole? When it comes to parenting, there are no perfect answers, but that's okay, because you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Well, Thomas, you've got prediabetes. But with more exercise and a change in diet, it can be reversed.
I've tried exercising. It just makes me hungry for bacon.
I love bacon, too. And who really likes to exercise?
Not me.
Me neither.
Nobody. So we're good?
What? Oh, you still have prediabetes. Big time.
Welcome back to Brainstorm. I'm here with Gracia Montero, the Director of Admissions for the College of New Jersey, and we are having a really great conversation, sharing so much information with the viewers, because I know so many parents get overwhelmed when it's time to start thinking about colleges. When do you suggest that they start thinking about this? I know, some families are thinking about it in kindergarten. It might be a little bit early, but at what point in high school should they start talking to their child about it, getting a feel of where they want to go, maybe helping them to that list you mentioned, to try to pick out colleges that might fit some of the things that they're looking for?
I get excited about the dinner table.
I like dinner table too.
When we're running around everywhere, right, it makes it harder to sit down and have meaningful conversations. So sometimes if it's not at the dinner table, it could be as you're driving back and forth. I would not necessarily start with conversations about what college, and have you thought about Rutgers, Princeton, TCNJ, UDL, but more, what do you like? Where are your interests? Where do you see yourself? And having very light conversations, I think that's very meaningful. I believe that a good research, I keep going back to research, can really occur in the junior year.
Okay.
Leaving traveling or leaving the visitations to schools to the senior year can be very overwhelming.
Okay.
The process is overwhelming. And how do you...
And you always think you have more time than
and
you
you
have.
believe that you have more time, so it's trying to simplify the process as much as possible. So the earlier, the better. So I always, I love to say that by sophomore year, if you're able to sneak in a visit or have done a little bit of research online, makes it so much easier for the junior year and then for the senior year.
And really, by senior year, sometimes they have to have their applications in at,
That is
especially
correct.
early decision.
That is
and
correct.
so you don't really have your whole senior year to think about
You
it.
really don't. An ideal time for juniors will be at this moment, let's
Okay.
say, starting February, March, with
Junior
some junior
year.
visit
Okay.
exactly before going into the summer.
Okay.
I think that's really ideal. The spring break is coming up.
Yeah.
A very popular time to
Oh, I
visit
bet.
colleges.
I bet.
Absolutely.
So now, how about interviews? Do colleges do interviews, or is that up to each college to?
It is definitely up to each college.
Okay.
Not everyone is able to or has the manpower to have interviews. If a school does offer you an interview and you believe that you are a good interviewee, I encourage that.
Okay.
It brings just another element to the application. It makes it, right?
Yeah.
You present yourself in a different way. You don't get a second chance to make a first impression. So you have to absolutely, look at the interview as an evaluative process. And that's something that I would always encourage families to make sure they understand. Are you evaluating me through this interview, or is it just information exchange?
Okay.
There's some colleges that allow for that, just information exchange, but there are other colleges that will use that interview and put it into the application and pull it out later.
And that's part of the evaluation.
And that will be part of their decision process, correct.
Now, here's a question. One of the, I got this from about 6 different kids. Do colleges check our social media accounts?
Some do.
Some of the parents were like,
some
why?
Some do, but some might. I would tell you, we don't have a lot of time to do that. There's not enough time. I would also, however, use caution. If you think that could be a possibility, you should not be posting anything that's inappropriate. I will also look at the email account that you're using. Colleges are communicating more and more via email.
Okay.
Right? And you should have an appropriate email account associated with your college process. You should hear some of the colleges, some of the kind of funky emails that are just not appropriate for the process.
The email address?
The email address, exactly. They prompt, negative sentiments. That is really not ideal. Again, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression.
You don't.
It begins with that email. It continues with how you communicate with colleges. Colleges are also looking at interests. How are you communicating? How are you sending a message with a hey or a dear Mrs.
Good morning.
Good morning. Those courtesies. I think those are really, really critical, and it's important to start that process now.
So they're really little tells for maturity, too, for the students.
That is correct.
So now, when students are really interested in a school, maybe they have it down to 4 or 5 schools, do you advise them to really go take the tour, talk to the faculty? Is that something you would advise?
Highly encourage a visit to a college will make a difference.
'Cause I think sometimes seeing the brochure and actually being there, it's 2 different things.
When everything's said and done and you're down to those 5 schools that you really want to explore, a visit can make a difference. Even before getting onto a campus, even before you get out of the car, sometimes you already know, I love it here, sometimes it might require that connection with the faculty or staff or even peers, the students, but the visit is critical. Seeing the residence halls, seeing the dining facilities.
Dining
right?
is something that will be a part of your daily life that
right.
they may overlook because
the library, the student center. What are students doing at 12? Coming in the evening at times. I think it's important to do that because it's you envisioning yourself for the next 4 years on this college campus. Can I thrive here? Can I find the mechanism or the communities that will help me be successful?
Now, how about the students who may graduate from high school and they're really not mature enough and they're not ready to enter the world of a 4-year school? Do you advise them to, start in community college and then eventually transfer over?
I am a cheerleader for the community colleges.
As I am. I feel the same way.
I do believe they're doing fantastic things for our communities. There are a couple of things that a student that might not have done well in high school can get a fresh start. A student that might have done well and the finances are not there, sometimes the community college might be the best way to start. The reality is that many community colleges have those connections with the 4-year colleges. So, and at the community colleges, you're also able to get an AAS degrees, certificate degrees. I'm a proponent, while I don't believe everybody needs to go to college, I do believe everybody needs to continue to learn.
Absolutely. It's lifelong.
Lifelong. I'm still learning. You're still, right? And
right now I'm learning. This is wonderful.
There you go.
We're all learning thanks to you.
But if you take that approach to life, it doesn't matter where you start or how you start. I think it's just that you are making progress.
Absolutely.
And there is a true path from a community college to get to 4-year colleges if that's where you want to be.
Very good.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm sure so many parents call your office over and over and over again. Would a good resource for these parents also be their high school guidance counselors? Because I think they work so closely with so many colleges. Would you recommend that parents and students really make use of the high school guidance counselors?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and yes. Guidance counselors are our friends.
Yes.
And they can be the biggest advocates for students. Any discrepancy that we see in an application, we will communicate with the guidance counselors, which means that it's important for the student to have had those conversations with the guidance counselors. They should be your friends. They should be individuals that know you. Get on their radar. Make connections not just when they have appointments with you.
Yes.
I think you need to be able to, share what you're doing. They might not necessarily know what you're doing during the summer.
Yeah.
The summer camps, the experiences. Notify your guidance counselors of these things. They can really be your biggest advocates during the process.
And they can answer a lot of the questions, very simple questions that they could answer. It doesn't tie your office up with those same questions, so it allows you to continue to go through the applications.
You are absolutely correct.
Well, I don't know if you're up for it, but we are going to play a game called Brainstorm.
Oh, good.
So in the tradition of brainstorming, we will go over 8 ideas, and if they're good ideas, if they're true, we'll keep them.
Okay.
But like in brainstorming, if they're not good ideas, then they go.
They go.
They go.
All right.
Okay. No pressure, but you have to make a basket.
Let's see.
You ready?
Sure.
Idea number 1. It's very important to research colleges and universities.
Let's keep.
All right, that's a keeper. I agree with that. That goes with everything you just said. Number 2, a great SAT score guarantees acceptance to any college. There we go.
Okay.
Had a feeling.
Can I make this basket?
I can even give you an assist. There you go. Excellent. Look at you. Okay, you were practicing in the parking lot, weren't you? All right, idea 3, colleges prefer well-rounded students.
Yes.
Okay.
And if I could add, well-rounded
absolutely.
meaning, that they're bringing out different elements. We're looking at diversity in so many different factors, and just that well-roundedness is just to continue to make you a better candidate for the campus.
And I like how you didn't put the emphasis on just your application, but as you as a person and the growth. Idea 4, applicants should call the admissions office each day for updates. Maybe on the hour. No, not a good one?
On the hour. No,
your staff wouldn't like that one, right? Good thing you made it. Volunteering and community involvement make a strong candidate.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. And
Very
I always
good.
believe that as you ask for something, you always have to give back to the communities.
Very good. Idea 6, students should apply to dozens of schools, maybe all of them. No.
You know how I feel about that. All right, let's see. Ooh,
Okay.
3 for 3.
You're good. You're on fire here. So idea number 7, high school guidance counselors are a great resource.
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll keep that
We're our
one.
friends.
And I love this one. Idea 8, an admissions rejection isn't the end of the world.
Oh gosh, thank you for this question. And I believe that if you've done true research, at the end of the day,
I didn't even see that. I never saw that one.
At the end of the day, you should still have college that has accepted you. I would say parents celebrate those acceptances.
Yes.
Those are fantastic. There was a reason why they were on the list in the first place.
And if you don't get into your school of your dreams, then go to community college. Go, do things to improve and maybe try again, or look into other colleges. I mean, there's so many other options for kids. So I hate to see them just get their hearts broken if it doesn't work out.
That's right.
Well, you have been an amazing resource, and I want to thank you on behalf of parents everywhere, all the viewers. I want to thank the viewers for joining us today, and we will see you next time on Brainstorm.
Patriotism. It inspires passionate debate. It's worn like a badge of honor with good reason, because it means love and devotion for one's country. But what really makes up this country of ours? it's the people. To love America is to love all Americans. This year, patriotism shouldn't just be about pride of country. It should be about love. Love beyond age, sexuality, disability, race, religion, and other labels. Because love has no labels.
They call me Maxie, but I prefer tripod. I was your above-average four-legged homie, and then wham, bam, minivan. Some people pity me. Now that's lame. I still run, fetch, and swim. And the ladies love me. I'm the ultimate wingman. Just don't ask me to high five.